Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey. My name's Vin PF, and on today's episode we're going back to basics and we're checking out something that you might not have heard of if you're not in the UK. Maybe you have, I'm not sure. But this one here is the Deanston Kentucky Cask Matured. Bit of a weird one because I hadn't seen this before it popped up on the story I'm about to tell you. But it's Deanston, and Deanston is held in fairly high regard across the whisky world, especially amongst whisky tubers, and especially those that are in Scotland. They hold Deanston, the Deanston 12, and even the Virgin Oak, the kind of basic level ones, in very high regard indeed. So to get something a bit cheaper for, Deanston is a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it? So that's what this is right here. So this is a cheap version of Deanston. I'm not sure about the actual deals that were struck with this, but the main two places in the UK that you're going to get hold of this are the Morrison's Superstores and Amazon, which of course they have a bit of a linked business model anyway. And I came about this because it's they market it at like 30 quid. The Deanston 12 is like £38, something like that, and the Virgin Oak is like 35, 32, something like that, in those kind of regions. So I guess they wanted to produce something that was a bit cheaper to just generally put out and make it a bit more of an entry level one. What happens then is on Morrison's and Amazon they tend to kind of price match each other. So if Morrison's puts the price down on something, Amazon kind of matches that, and that's basically what happened here. Something that's usually 30 quid, and it's very often, like right now at time of recording, it's on deal for £25 on Amazon. This was going for like 18 quid, and it got released into the kind of Twitterverse and whatnot, and everyone that I know kind of jumped on it. And it's taken me, this was last year sometime now, and it's taken me until now to get round to actually recording it. Kind of still deciding what I think about it, but we'll get into that when we actually do the tasting. Some cool little features about this. Obviously we're talking about a 40% whiskey here, and as I said earlier, that sort of £18 is about as cheap as I can get hold of a good bottle of whiskey. There's some really bad ones at that sort of price as well, so it's worth trying something from a well-known distillery when you get the opportunity to do so, I think. So yeah, 40%, and one of the words they say on here is soft-filtration, and this is unpeated underneath, of course. And one thing they're trying to say on this one here is that it isn't technically chill filtered. I'm not sure what the difference between the soft filtration and the chill filtration is, but obviously chill filtration is a fairly harsh thing to do to a whiskey, and it really all comes about because when a whiskey is below 46%, I think the magic number's like 46.12% ABV or something like that. When a whiskey is below that ABV, when you add water or add ice or whatever, it goes cloudy, and that was deemed a not a good thing. Even though it doesn't change the flavour at all, it's just people didn't like it. This is decades ago. This sort of thing was decided, by the way. So yeah, they've kind of made mention of that on the back of the label here to say that this might go a little bit cloudy, but don't worry about it. It seems a shame. I think we should be kind of pushing through that kind of gap in knowledge that things like colour. Don't know about added colour in this, by the way. I'll show you that again. It's fairly light. But I can't imagine that this is very old. So they might well have added a squidge of caramel colour in it just to bring it up to this kind of like hay-like rather than it being clear. It might well have been. They do say it's been aged in first fill and second fill barrels. Obviously, ex-bourbon, Kentucky Cask is what this is all about. I kind of think I've whittled on about this enough. Let's get into the actual whiskey and see what we've got, shall we? I'll make another quick mention of colour, of course, but I don't know if it's been added colour or whatnot. It's still, I don't really care about that. It's just one of those things we need to push through, as I was saying, we need to push through. Let's get onto the nose then and see what we've got, shall we? Okay, so it is... Yeah, it's fairly light on big, bold flavours, as you would expect, I'm not trying to compare this with with a kind of something mind blowing. I'm just trying to give you an idea about what I'm getting, but it's quite spirity. I'll give you that. It's not quite acetone-y, but it's there's something of a proper like laboratory chemical nature about it. Very light, very light. It's nice and sweet. It isn't overly sweet. It's just more of those kind of like vanilla-y kind of oakiness that's you would expect from a young whiskey, I guess. Not getting so many of the hay-like characters that I would usually associate with a young whiskey, but I guess if I was really pushed, you could be like maybe some kind of burnt sugar, you know, kind of very, very, very light creme brulee nose to it. It's not half bad, you know. Once you get past those kind of initial spirity, kind of chemically like versions of the front of the nose, then there's nothing too offensive here at all. Let's try on the palate. Okay, so yeah, I mean, actually a surprising amount going on. It's not quite as watery as I would expect for a 40% and a chill filtered. Obviously, we know that this isn't chill filtered, so it's retaining a little bit of that viscosity that we like. Good mouthfeel. There isn't a whole heap going on flavour wise. It's again a kind of typical ex-bourbon fare. A few of those vanillas, honeys, that sort of thing. Really light on all of them, I should point out. Really light. There's a kind of pepperiness on the back end of it. It's a little bit like candy floss, I have to say. There's a kind of initial nice mouthfeel, all of those notes that I gave earlier, all coming at once, and then sort of just like just disappear off the cliff, you know, once it's all gone. Let's have another little sip. Yeah, I mean, look, this thing cost me 18 quid, and it was 25 quid normal prices. And let's look at those each prices individually. So the RRP on this is something like 30. Madness. For what I can get for £30, you know, I mean, while this isn't a bad whiskey whatsoever, I think I'd be pretty disappointed if I'd paid that much for it. 25 quid, yeah, it's pretty good for that sort of price. You know, it fits in quite nicely with all the other entry level stuff of that sort of ilk. You know, the 40%ers, ex-bourbons. You know, sometimes you get a bit of sherry cask in there as well. You know, if you're lucky, but it fits quite nicely in there. 18 quid, an absolute bargain. Absolute bargain. Complete no-brainer. I would say if you can get it anywhere between that 18 and £25, you're laughing. I wouldn't want to push too much more than that 25 for this. Yes, it's Deanston. You know, we all love Deanston. Can't say a bad word about Deanston. I covered the 18 sometime last year. Haven't covered the others yet. Should cover the others. I've got some samples on the shelf, but you know me, I don't sort of review those anymore. But yeah, if you see this on the shelf and you see it for a good price, then get it. Don't expect too much from it, because it's not trying to get you to expect too much from it. Certainly do not compare it to the rest of the Deanston range. Completely unfair for this kind of whiskey, because it's just not trying to compete with the rest of the range. It's just trying to put nice, cheap, entry level in there for the people that want that. You know, if you're happy with your 12 and you're happy with your 18 and you're happy with your virgin oak, yeah, add it to your collection. It's quite cheap, but again, don't expect too much from it, because I don't think it's going to expect too much from you, to be honest. Classic guard whiskey, you know, my own guard whiskey vibes. Classic guard whiskey. Buy it, protect your other whiskies, get it gone. Don't worry about killing it off. Replace it if you want to. That's pretty much it for me. It's a decent whiskey. That's all I can say, really. And if you see it, probably get it.